Welcome to the Adventurous Minds podcast, examining fitness and wellness through the lens of outdoor sport and adventure. Welcome back to another episode of Adventurous Minds. It's your host, Timmy Summers, and I'm very excited to introduce you to Carly Margulies. Carly is a half-pipe freestyle skier who most recently competed in the 2022 Winter Olympics in China. Over the last 8 years, Carly has had more setbacks than most skiers experience in a lifetime. After 7 knee surgeries, she thought her days of competing at a high level were over. But with a little luck and a whole lot of grit, she earned her spot to compete in the Olympics. Carly's story is a true testament to the power and resilience of the human spirit. I really enjoyed learning about Carly's journey and hope that inspires you to overcome the obstacles standing between you and your dreams, just like Carly did. Hey, Carly, thanks so much for coming on. I'm really stoked to chat with you.
Yeah, me too. Should be fun.
So I think you have such an important and really interesting story because when you're on, any journey, whether it's trying to get to the Olympics or shave 10 seconds off your mile time, any hiccup or injury, whatever it may be, can kind of feel like the end. And getting through it physically, mentally is really hard, which is why your story is so interesting and exciting, particularly because of the time crunch you were in to heal and recover to make it to the most recent Olympics.
Yeah.
So I want to get into your career, Olympics and everything, but I feel like we should just start off like back in Mammoth. What was it like growing up? When did skiing first enter your life? Any context would be awesome.
Yeah, so I was born in San Francisco actually, and then when I was 5, we moved up to Mammoth. And so I started off there in kindergarten, and we had a ski PE program for the elementary school. So that kind of allowed us to ski like 3 to 4 days a week in the afternoon. So that really allowed us to like kind of be immersed in that right away at a young age. But because we were such a young age and we were so small, we weren't technically allowed to go ski in the park with all the jumps and the half pipe. And so what I did is we had a chairlift that went right over the jumps and the half pipe. And we would be going up that chairlift, and I would purposely drop my ski pole off of the chairlift so that I would have to go into the park and go grab my ski pole, all the while hitting the jumps and the rails and the half pipe. And I think my coach caught on to that, but I was able to do it enough to the point where I like started to fall in love with that feeling of hitting jumps. And so I found out when I was 11 years old that I could join the Mammoth free ski team. And so when I was 11, joined the team. And at that point, I had enrolled in this like online 6th grade program that allowed me to ski whenever I wanted and also go to school. And so my first year being on the team, I had a lot of time to kind of realize that this was something I really enjoyed doing. And so the following year, I decided to start competing in local events, USASA events. And yeah, it kind of solidified for me then that that's something I wanted to pursue. And so got through middle school. Once high school came around, I decided to continue with the online schooling. And this program allowed us to ski every single day, except for Tuesdays. We had to go into school and take our tests. But every other day we were able to ski whenever we wanted, however long we wanted. It was pretty ideal, I'd say. Not the best for my learning, I'd say, because I definitely didn't prioritize that. But for my ski career, I think that was the best possible thing I could have done. And yeah, just living in Mammoth, we had a lot of sunny days growing up there, but also a lot of crappy weather days. But that chairlift I was talking about earlier that's right above the park is a pretty short chairlift. And so we were able to kind of lap that chairlift super fast. And so we got a lot of laps in. So that was a really good aspect of living in Mammoth, is just the amount of training time we got. So yeah, I was pretty lucky living in Mammoth, I'd say.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I did not realize that you were kind of in that, or how much you were actually skiing. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, ton.
Were you traveling to ski in the summer, or were you just hang out in Mammoth and enjoy the warm weather?
Yeah, we would travel to Mount Hood, Oregon. There's a glacier there, so we would travel there every summer to ski. And then as I got older and I actually was taking skiing more seriously as a career, we would go over to New Zealand in the summer as well and ski there for like a month at a time.
So was there like is there a moment that you can think of when you were like, okay, this is going to be or potentially going to be a career for me?
Mhm.
Or is that did it just, you were always skiing?
No, I do remember a specific moment. I was with two of my best friends, and I think it was like 2 years before the first Olympics for half pipe skiing
Mhm.
in Sochi. And so I think I was like, what, 12 at the time, maybe. And I remember we were all talking about it and how excited we were that that was going to be an Olympic sport. And we were on the bus going up to the mountain. And I remember stepping off of the bus and something clicked. And I was like, guys, we should try to go to the next Olympics for half pipe. How crazy would that be? And we all agreed in that moment that we would all try our best to get there. And so, yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. That's pretty cool that you had like an actual moment where you're like, all right,
I
we're
know.
going to try and make this happen.
Right? Like it was a far-fetched dream at the time. I didn't think it would actually happen, but it would have been cool if it happened, and it did. So I look back at 12 years old Carly, and I think she's pretty proud.
Yeah, that's definitely something to be proud of for sure.
Yeah.
Um, so like, okay, so you made this decision, like, I want to go to the Olympics. I want to make skiing a career. How did, or did your like kind of, did your skiing change at all? Like the approach to going out every day? Were you like more technical or, was there some shift there?
I wouldn't say it was a conscious thing I decided, but one thing that did change for my career is I used to compete in both slopestyle and half pipe until I was 16. And once I was 16, I decided that this is something that's actually going to happen potentially. And so I wanted to just focus on one event. And so I decided to cut out slopestyle skiing completely and just focus my whole attention on half pipe skiing.
Why did you choose half pipe? Like, I mean, I'm a pretty decent skier. I've spent a lot of time in a half pipe. It's terrifying. Like
Yeah,
those
it is.
walls are scary.
I honestly find slopestyle scarier. It kind of gave me a lot of anxiety. I think just the aspect of like the jumps changing every single event, like this, the
Right.
size of the jump, the speed, there's different rails. So it's always different. Whereas like a half pipe, it's the same thing. It's two walls. Like some things change about it, but it's pretty much the same thing. So it definitely gave me less anxiety. And I was just doing better in results in half pipe anyways. So
Got it. Wow. I actually have never thought about that with the course changing. Yeah, I guess
mhm.
yeah, because there's no variation in the height of the pipe, right? Like it's always
No,
this, what is it, like 21 feet or something like that?
22. Yeah.
22. Um, cool. All right. Well, I kind of want to jump a little bit to, I think 2015, which I think is when you first had your first knee injury. Is that right?
I no, I think it was before that. I think I was 14, so 10 years ago, 2014.
Okay. So then, but then you were on kind of like a string of like a handful of injuries, right? Um,
Yeah, I
I
had
don't want to dwell on that, but like just for like context for the
yeah,
listeners.
totally. I actually wrote it down because I've had this question a lot. So let me pull it up if it's still here. Um, Basically, I had my first knee injury when I was 14, and it was an ACL in my right knee, ACL and meniscus. And then about nine, yeah, I can't find it, but about 9 months later, I was back on snow, back competing, and I had just won my first half pipe rev tour event. And that same exact day, I went and trained for slope style. Another reason I quit. And I knuckled a jump really, really bad, which means you come up short. So here's where you're supposed to land. I landed right here on the flat. And so that same day, I tore my ACL and meniscus in the opposite knee. So it's kind of evening myself out in a way. And then about a year later, I was back on snow, and I had a pretty good gap of time here. It was about like 2 or 3 seasons without getting hurt. And then yeah, ended up, I forget what, they're kind of all blurred together, but I ended up tearing my right ACL meniscus again one day. Another process of like a year-long rehab. At this point, I decided to go to school to college. I went to Westminster College in Salt Lake City, Utah, and it was kind of a silver lining being hurt. I was able to go to school full time, which was kind of a blessing in disguise. And then got back on snow a year later and was on snow for probably like 6 months, and then tore my right ACL again and meniscus. And so the process began again. However, this time I was able to finish school in like 5 years, which is crazy for athletes. Usually it takes them like 10 years. So another blessing. And then, yeah, that led up to last spring. I was back on snow, and I had a really good spring training and a really good fall training in Europe. And then came to Copper Mountain, Colorado for our first Olympic qualifier. And the day before our first event, I ended up tearing my meniscus in my left knee. And that's a whole story. I don't know if you want me to get into right now or if you want me to hold off, but
Yeah, we'll come back to it.
okay. So yeah, those are the injuries.
So I mean, obviously leg injuries are super common with skiing, but are ACL and MCL injuries really common for half pipe? Is there just something about the way you land that results in that injury?
I think it's pretty even across the board for all skiing sports in general, like racing as well. I think it's more common for skiers and snowboarders because we're separate with our legs.
Yeah.
And even more common for girls because we have like hip birthing hips.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Okay, so you have X amount of surgeries and injuries. I can see it would be very easy to kind of lose hope. Like maybe this won't pan out, Olympics, professional career. What kind of kept you going through that? Like, I mean, you got to go to school, which is pretty cool, but why did you stay motivated? Because personally, I feel like I would have been out after like the first or second,
Totally.
And they're not like small injuries. These are, pretty big deal.
They are. I think like since it is so common in our sport, I saw how other people were able to come back from it and be totally fine. And so I think that was kind of in the back of my head, like you can get through this like everyone else has. And then I remember after my second ACL injury, I watched Lindsey Vohn's documentary, and she's probably had around the same amount of knee injuries. And so watching that was like super inspiring. And she's like one of the best female skiers. So I don't know. There was a lot of external factors that helped me stay motivated, but I think the biggest one was my dream of going to the Olympics. And I think that I would have been pretty mad at myself if I didn't at least try and keep going no matter what obstacles came my way. And I think if I got super, super injured, then it would probably be the end of my career. But it's just an injury that takes 9 to 12 months. So why not just stick it out?
Yeah, I mean, I guess when you think about it, it's just time. You're like, I can handle that.
Get through it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
did it kind of get easier with each injury? Like, do you learn from the last one? Like, all right, I'm not going to get as upset about this one. It's just the time thing. Or was it kind of like the same as the first time?
It definitely got easier. Some aspects were harder mentally, but I think knowing what goes into each injury and the rehab process and all that made it easier. Yeah, I'd say it got easier, but it definitely wasn't good on my mental health. Like, yeah, the confidence of my skiing went down for sure. Like, why am I doing this? I keep getting hurt, blah, blah, blah. But I'd always go back to that goal.
I can imagine being in school was probably a decent distraction at times. Did that kind of having that I mean, you've had a really interesting childhood, like, and I feel like college is a relatively normal, like, route for you. Like, having some normalcy, was that kind of a good thing for you?
Oh, it was so nice. Yeah. That's the biggest thing I tell people when they get hurt is like fill your time with other things. Otherwise, you're just going to be sitting around just dwelling on the fact that you're hurt and wanting to ski. So coming out to a new spot meeting new people, like putting your mind towards education and something that can be completely different from skiing helped a lot.
Yeah, I can see that. Um, all right, so I guess we'll get into the injury right before the Olympics. Um, so you tore it like what, less than 3 months? You tore your meniscus less than 3 months before the Olympics, is that right?
It was like less than 2 months, maybe like a 1.5 month. Yeah.
So can you kind of like walk us through like how it happened and then how you got to the conclusion that like, okay, this is the Olympics is still real?
Mm-hmm.
Because that seems crazy to me. Like, you tear your meniscus and then you're like, all right, yep, we're still going to the Olympics.
I know it still feels pretty surreal. Yeah, so like I said, in December, the day before our first Olympic qualifier, first of 4 Olympic qualifiers, I ended up tearing my meniscus and I had to go get an MRI and went and talked to the doctor, and he read the MRI to me and was like, "Yeah, your meniscus is torn. It's looking like you're gonna need surgery, and it's gonna be a 6 to 9 month recovery." And in that moment, I was like, "Oh my God, so I'm not going to the Olympics?" And he's like, "No." And so I started bawling my eyes out, as anyone probably would. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I think at this point, like I've made it this far. I can't continue skiing. I'm giving up. Like this is the end of my career." And so for that whole day, I kind of like had that mindset that I was done. I just felt like super empty inside. Um, and then my PT for the US team came up to me and she was like, "Hey, Carly, I just want to like let you know, like, don't get your hopes up, but there's a chance that this meniscus isn't actually repairable, which means they would just go in and snip the damaged area and it would only be a 4 to 6 week recovery. But the chances are pretty low on that." And she was like, "You won't know until you go in for surgery. So don't get your hopes up." So I was like, okay, of course I got my hopes up. Like I was telling everyone, I was like, "Dude, I could be going to the Olympics. There's still a chance. This is crazy, but I won't know until we go in." And so, like 3 days later, go in for surgery. My doctor was like, "All right, Carly, if your knee brace is on your knee when you wake up, that means you're looking at the 6 to 9 month recovery. If it is off of your leg to the side, that means you're looking at the 4 to 6 week recovery." Woke up from surgery all dazed and confused, and my knee brace was off to the side. And I remember my friend came to pick me up for surgery, and I remember looking at her and I was like, "Yo, I'm going to the Olympics. What the heck? This is crazy." And so, yeah, from that second, I kind of gave it my all and talked to the PTs that I was working with. And they're like, "Carly, it's still slight chance. Like the Olympics are in like 5 weeks and you have a 4 to 6 week window. Like you have to do everything in your power to do this." And so that's exactly what I did. I went to PT every day, worked out every day, and I was able to get back on snow in 4 weeks.
Wow. So what was that? That's absurd. What was your training like for that time? I mean, what type of stuff were you doing?
I did a lot of, it's called blood flow restriction. So it's this band that goes around the top of your leg and it literally restricts the blood flow going to your knee. And the concept of that is to try and like build up the muscle faster around your knee. It's kind of like cheating in a way, but it's legal. And so we did that every day with some workouts like body weight squats and lunges and stuff like that. So that was able to like build the muscle up around my knee faster. um Lots of manual therapy. And then since it was such a mellow surgery, I was able to start lifting weight pretty soon and putting a lot of weight on that knee, so it was pretty fast.
So I've always been curious, is there like a particularly when you're at like the Olympic level, is there like a mental health side of the training? Like are there people that you can talk to, or is it kind of just like we take care of the physical side and that's it?
No, we do have a pretty big mental health aspect to the team. We have a bunch of different sports psychologists. And then also if you need other resources, like other mental health resources, they have those for you to go to. And so I definitely used those during that time, and then also in my other injuries as well.
Yeah, I feel like that's a pretty necessary resource to have when you're like the constant ups and downs of,
Yeah,
I mean, not even just injuries, like wins and losses, like, those
totally.
affect you in crazy ways.
Yeah.
Um, so, all right, so you miraculously like make it happen and you're in the Olympics. What was that like? Like, was it kind of what you had hoped it to be since you were young, or, what was surprising or not about that experience?
It was crazy. Even leading up to it, all the press that I had to go through, and like right before flying out to China, we were in LA for a bunch of outfitting stuff and interviews, and even that process, like you almost like you kind of are a celebrity in a way, and I like have never been in that situation in my life, and so just to be thrown into that was pretty overwhelming, but in a good way. Um, and then yeah, once you got to China, you're just surrounded by all these talented people, and you just like look left, look right, and there's these Olympians, and it like humbles you in a way. So it was a really cool experience.
Was it how did okay, so you've competed your whole life. Like you're not new to competing by any means, but
Mhm.
when you're at the Olympic level and there's cameras on you that are going out to potentially millions of people, did
Yeah.
that kind of like add a new sense of like anxiety or nervousness to what you were doing, or is it just like I'm just going to do what I've always done?
It was weird because you'd think like at the Olympics you'd have an audience, but since we were going through COVID times, there was nobody in the audience. So yes, there was a bunch of cameras, but we kind of have those at past events. And so I honestly didn't feel any anxiety. Well, competition anxiety for sure, but I didn't have any added anxiety because there was no one there watching us. It kind of just felt like another practice day in a way. Um, so yeah,
That's like a maybe a blessing in disguise. Like
I think so.
it'd probably be really cool, I'm sure, to have like a really big crowd,
Yeah,
but
I think it would be,
yeah,
but
next
I'll
time.
take what I can get.
Yeah. um, wow. So that's cool. So, was there anything like, it's kind of the same question, but like, was there anything like really shocking or like funny or unique about the experience that kind of came up? I mean, being in China already is a pretty, foreign place to be.
Right.
Um, Anything interesting there?
Um, the food sucked. It was really bad. We had this like cafeteria that had it was like a buffet style kind of thing, and it was the same food every single meal every single day for 2 weeks straight, and it was really bad food, like plasticky chicken, mushy vegetables. It was really bad, but they also had like a KFC and a Pizza Hut, and so I ate there a ton, and I've never had KFC before, and that was like my main source of food. So that was interesting. Um, but we were able to go to a few hotels that were in our venue, and those had like authentic Chinese food, and that was really, really, really good. So we tried to go there a lot.
That's so funny that like you go to the Olympics, then you end up eating like American fast
I
food.
know, right? What are the chances?
um, so so you came back to the US and where are you right now? You're in Montana, is that right?
No, I'm in Salt Lake. I'm at
Oh,
my
Salt
home
Lake.
in Salt Lake. Yeah.
Nice. What's anything kind of coming up? Like what's next for you?
I actually have Utah's putting on like a welcome home Olympic gala tomorrow night, and we're gonna meet the governor, and Tony Hawk is gonna be there as a special guest. So
That's pretty cool.
that's gonna be awesome. I actually have a picture with him when I was like 14 years old. So I'm gonna pull it up and show him. Be like, yo, do you remember this? Like, let's redo this picture. So I've got that. I'm actually going to the White House May 1st to meet the president and like go in the White House and walk around. So
No
that's
way.
crazy.
I don't know
Yeah.
if you know, but I'm in Washington, D.C. right
Oh,
now.
you are?
Yeah, we should have timed this.
Oh, way. Let's meet up.
Yeah, for
I have
sure.
free time. I'm so down.
Um, Wow, that's cool. So,
Yeah.
so, um, so when are you going? So you have your Olympic gala tomorrow, and then you're coming to DC in, sorry, a couple of weeks. Is that what you said?
May 1st to the 4th. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And then after that, we go straight to Mammoth for a training camp. And that'll be our first like official training post Olympics. So just kind of gonna get my feet under my skis under my feet again. Um, and then we might be going to Hood in Oregon, and then maybe New Zealand. So
Nice.
a lot
Not
of good
bad.
things coming up. Yeah.
Pretty sweet schedule.
Yeah.
Um, wow, I'm jealous. So are you, after you got back from the Olympics, did you take a bunch of time off or did you kind of like get right back to it?
Yeah. Post Olympics was pretty tough for me actually. They warn the athletes a lot about like post Olympic depression. And I kind of always brushed it off because I've had pretty strong like mental health throughout my career. And so I brushed it off thinking that wouldn't happen to me. But literally the second I walked into my door, my roommates weren't home. I just like something came over me. I started bawling because I was back to normal life. Like I had just gone through this crazy event that I've been like training for my whole entire life. And now it's over and I'm back home. And so for the first like week or so, I kind of just laid in bed a lot, honestly. Couldn't get myself to go skiing for some reason. Like the one thing I love the most, I just couldn't get myself to do. And so about a week later, my friends kind of forced me to go out and ski and slowly got back into things. But I haven't been training half pipe like at all since I've been back. But my coaches kind of advised me not to do that. So I'm playing by the rules. But yeah, I'm feeling a lot better since then. I think it just was like the mix between jet lag and post Olympic letdown that kind of had a grip on me, but we're doing good now.
Nice. That's good to hear. I mean, that makes sense when you like kind of lead your whole life to this like culmination, this one point where, feels like you've done everything you can to get there, or you have done everything you can to get there.
Right.
So I get that.
Yeah.
Um, what, what type of role does your coach or coaches play in your kind of career? Like, are they there with you kind of at every practice, watching you go and like giving you tips, or is it like less oversight? Like I'm genuinely curious like how skiing coaches work.
Yeah. We all kind of like our whole entire team kind of lives in separate areas of the world. And so say if I wanted to go train here in Utah, they're not here, so they wouldn't be here to help me. But we do have like set training camps where they come and they'll sit at the top of the pipe and we'll do our runs, come back up and they'll give us advice kind of thing. And then post skiing, we also do like video review. And so we'll sit down with our coaches and they'll kind of pick apart little things that we need to change or if we have questions. So they play a big role in our skiing for sure. Without them, I don't know what I would do.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioning a video review, just kind of like piqued my interest because so I come from like a film background. That's what like I studied in school. And I always wanted to do kind of adventure filmmaking. And that's it still is what I do to a degree. But I know it's probably much closer associated with slopestyle and backcountry. But is there like a filming aspect to half pipe? Like, are you ever like making edits or movies, or is that just not really part of?
That's true. That you don't see a lot of that for sure. I don't know why. Yeah, I feel like that should change. I just feel like since it's the same thing, it's not as like interesting to someone else watching. Whereas slopestyle and backcountry, it's something different every time.
Yeah,
So
right.
that's probably why. But yeah, one of my first edits I ever made though was a mix between slopestyle and half pipe, and I put it to Macklemore. It was pretty sick.
That sounds like mid 2010s edit right there.
It definitely was. Yeah.
Um, so okay, sorry, back to the coaches. So do you have, so obviously there's the US like team coach, but do you have like your own personal coach as well, or is that do people do that, or is that not really?
Yeah, some people do if they have the money to, because private coaches are very expensive.
Yeah.
And being on the US team, we have free coaching. So I just have my two coaches for the team. And yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I can't imagine having a coach fly around and follow you.
Yeah, you have to pay for everything, like their flights, their housing, their probably meals, their coaching. It's a lot.
Yeah, I do. Are there many people on the U.S. team that do that? I mean, it feels like only a select
Um,
few would really be able to make that happen if they wanted to.
I think there's only one that I can, one or two that I can think of, but it's not actually a private coach. Like the other coach, they use coaches like another team. So for the US team, I don't think there's one athlete that has one coach.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. So, all right. So you're going to get through the summer and then back into competition season. Are you kind of hopping straight back into like X Games, do tour, like all those, or like
Yeah,
what's the route for getting back into competition? Like not Olympics.
yeah, I definitely am gonna get back into it just because I don't know if I mentioned this, but the Olympics was my first event back in like over 2 seasons.
Oh no.
So I haven't competed in a long time, and competing at the Olympics made me miss it even more. So our first event is in Copper for the Grand Prix, and then we have Do Tour right after that, and then I think an event in Canada, and then another event in Mammoth, and then we have X Games. And I think that's it for the year. Could be wrong, but
And
that's it.
hopefully we'll have audiences back for everything now.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, they had it back last year for X Games, which I wasn't there, but I was watching and it looked so fun. So it makes a huge difference.
I've wanted to go to X Games for a couple years now, and like right as I was kind of like it was on my radar, COVID happened, and then it was like, all right, I need to wait until it's like fully back to normal because it
Yeah.
seems like so much fun.
Oh, it's so fun. I haven't like actually competed in it. I've been like an alternate. So I've been able to sit in the crowd and watch, and it's unreal. It's like a concert almost, like that kind of vibe where you're standing with everyone and shouting and screaming. But yeah, it's so fun. You'll have
It
to go.
almost seems like a music festival, at least in Aspen. Like it
Oh,
seems
it
like
is.
this full on secondary like motive to it.
Oh, for sure. Because they
Yeah.
have concerts and all that, and then everyone goes out and it's a good time.
Yeah. It's on I think I'll be there this year for sure.
See you there.
All right. Well, I kind of think this is kind of a good place to round out. Any final or parting words for the people?
People, I hope that anyone listening to this can kind of take away the fact that like if you have a goal in mind, kind of like stay honed in on that and don't give up no matter what people say, no matter what happens to you. Like listen to your heart, and whatever your heart is telling you, like literally just stick to it and believe in yourself because you can make it.
Awesome. I think those are good parting words.
Perfect.
Thanks so much, Carly. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Adventurous Minds. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you want to stay up to date with the latest releases, you can scan the QR code or find us on Instagram at Adventurous Minds Pod. See you out there.